Hello my friends and welcome. Let's go straight to the Pokrovsk direction. 80% of the Pokrovsk town is being in one or other way controlled by the Russian forces. Their infiltration attempts continue, I would say kind of successfully. You might check out the recent territorial gains in couple of the areas, including the central part of Pokrovsk. Also, there is the wide expansion of the gray area. All of the settlement is in the gray area, but according to my information, 20% is still left under Ukrainian control. Ukrainian forces even sometimes surrender to Russians. Yes, it happens. Actually, it's a bad sign that it happened here in this crossroad. It means that the connection between Pokrovsk and Mirnograd is basically lost. Well, if Ukrainian presence in Pokrovsk is just here and there and the remaining of the forces potentially may retreat kind of fast from this settlement, speaking about, for example, this village or maybe this village and the southern area of Mirnograd and Mirnograd itself, there is the huge risk for this entire Ukrainian group. Yeah, we're not speaking about thousands and thousands of Ukrainian troops, but there could be hundreds of those. And for example, in Suhy Yar, soldiers have to cross around 10, maybe more even kilometers to reach the previously available point for evacuation. Now it's been closed by Russians, so they'll have to go probably to Mirnograd itself and somehow try to find out the next crossroad, which is close to Rodinsk and Rodinsk, even though it is under Russian strikes constantly, but still is under Ukrainian control. So if we go to this map that was published yesterday, there were two of the main exit points for Ukrainian army and also entrance points, for supplies. Well, Russians already cancelled this one because Ukrainian troops, they surrendered to Russians at this crossroad. So as for this hour, by the time I'm recording the video, only one exit route is possible. It goes via this very important crossroad. There are some of the field roads, their Ukrainian army may leave this area, and there are multiple of attempts of the Russian army to get to Rodinsk and also to cut this route. And of course, Russia concentrates their entire forces to cut Ukrainian logistics and for Ukrainian soldiers to leave this area. Russia wants the Ukrainians to be really encircled. So if we go to the interactive map, the map is published by the Myco Century Analytic. Again, the link for his media is in the video description just below. Guys, this map is absolutely great. It shows all of the details, and by clicking every link, for example, here we have the original information published. For example, here, Ukrainian soldier had to surrender. Unfortunately, it's been confirmed. I saw this video. So this gap is getting shorter, and Russians, they still cannot take this crossroad under control, and now it's the main one for Ukraine to leave area. But how they can do it at this stage, especially those far away guys, I just afraid of the same scenario with Avdiivka. Then the part of the Ukrainian forces were just trapped. Here it could be the same. Well, still, it's not going to be some sort of the Bakhmut stuff. Then Ukraine lost lots of the infantry in defending the city, but it's the huge demotivating factor for Ukrainians in general if our military command doesn't do those evacuations at the proper time and waits until the final moment to somehow save the lives of our soldiers. And they all say the main priority are the lives of the soldiers and so on, but they still want to keep settlements till the last very end, let's say. And deploying GUR, well, as for me, it doesn't help because Russians continue to advance. It's simply not enough forces to compensate this push that Russians now have, and they pour more and more forces here to this direction. My friends, on this channel I tell the situation as it is. I'm not sugarcoating it or something. No, if there is a mistake, I tell about it. If there is a difficult situation, close to catastrophic one, I also tell about it. And leaving just one crossroad, which is more or less under Ukrainian control, but still been attacked by multiple of the Russian drones, well, it's not okay situation, as you may understand. So Pokrovsk direction is completely messed up for Ukraine. And you can blame Russians for it, but I would blame poor defense of Ukraine. Or it is better to say too late decisions done. And there is no any freaking way for Ukraine to save Mirnograd and Pokrovsk. They will be occupied in the coming days or weeks maximum. Why? Well, because Russia has more army men, more resources. Ukraine should concentrate on defending the main defense line in Donbass. Use it for defense at least to avoid those kind of the cases. Then Russia went forward to Zoloty Kolodets. This direction, as I say to you, is even more important than Pokrovsk. And I want to check out the update from the deep state military map source. So they show like this yesterday, and it is today the expansion of the gray area. Also, Russians have the infiltration attempts, successful ones, by the way, to go to the southern area of Mirnograd. So actually there are two of the risks for Ukrainian forces to be trapped. Here one goes from Krasny Liman and Pokrovsk, if there's the physical encirclement of the entire Ukrainian group, or the smaller encirclement of those villages in the south if Russians continue to propel from Promen and Novopavlivka. So again, how to withdraw from this area, and to go to Mirnograd, you have the close proximity encounterment with the Russian forces, and here is a very small gap. Yeah, very difficult situation, guys. What can I say? Yeah, I say what I say. I just hope that Russia fails with its encirclement attempts, but the chance for them to be successful is pretty much high, and our soldiers on the front lines, our military command, volunteers, they were all screaming about this possible situation days ago, but Ukrainian military command was not too fast in taking the decisions to withdraw the forces out. Again, the same mistake happening in one more settlement, in one more town. Two of the towns, actually, in this case, Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. And my friends, thank you so much for watching me, even then I tell about the bad news. I think that this journalism work is important. I consider myself now at this stage as the independent journalist. With the audience I have, it's kind of big. Every of my videos got at least 200,000 views, so it's important for me to get the truth to the world, to understand for the Western audience what is really happening. And if we all tell the truth, maybe Ukrainian military command would do something differently next time. Because Ukrainian influencers, also like Sternenko, the biggest volunteer of Ukraine, he also tells the same stuff that I tell you here on this channel. He's just a Ukrainian speaker, he speaks Ukrainian. He has the huge audience within the country, but for me, I also need to say about those things. Yeah, we'll have some of the good news in this video. Some of the kabooms happen on territory of Russia. Those may look already like regular incidents, but actually it is really outstanding that Ukraine is capable to hit Russia that far and that hard. So of course I'll speak about it, but now let's continue with the situation update on the front lines. Okay, Deep State gives us the Russian advancement towards Novoplatonivka, and it happened. Yes, Russia also increased its presence towards Borisivka. They're kind of close or already in Borisivka and Andriivka small village. There is one street, and the idea for Russians is to get to Oskil River here. As you might see, they already created the pocket between Kupiansk and Senkova, and they want to create smaller pocket here, advancing with this attack vector. So Ukraine should withdraw the forces, but Russia will increase its presence and will create the bigger bridgehead. By the way, probably this bridge is gone already. Well, in general, Russia cut all of the supplies across the Oskil River, so potentially Ukraine will have to withdraw the forces if Kupiansk is not liberated. Well, compared to Pokrovsk, actually Ukraine has higher chances in Kupiansk because there is the counterattack now ongoing towards Holubivka village in attempt to trap the entire Russian group. I told about it in my recent update yesterday. But still there is a big question about this counteroffensive operation from Ukrainian side. Plus there was the Russian advancement not far away from Dachne, but this attack vector was cancelled by Ukraine already. That's the information I have. I would say it's the most successful direction for the Russian army if we speak about the territorial gains. And we also have the information about the possible involvement of the South Korean troops in the war again. At least the intelligence of the South Korea reported that 5,000 military construction workers were sent to Russia and 1,000 of them were spotted right at the border with Ukraine. This source says that they're involved in reconstructing the damaged facilities, but we understand that those are just the North Korean soldiers which could potentially take the part in war against Ukraine. They already did it in a Russian region of Kursk, but Russia counts the occupied regions as also the Russian territory. North Korea recognizes Donbass as the Russian territory as well. I mean, Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast, so potentially, officially, according to their documentation, North Korea could be involved in fighting a Ukrainian army from the Russian side. For now, I don't have the real videos from the drone cameras confirming, but I think it may happen. And you see, Asian army, I mean, North Korea's Asia, after all, is fighting on European territory thousands and thousands of miles away, but Europe somehow is not sending its forces to protect Ukraine, and the war in Ukraine may definitely influence the security of NATO, of Europe, but no, those dictators, they have more prompt action. Again, that's what I don't like, guys. Yeah, Zelensky today visited the Pokrovsk direction, but will it help? No. I think that Zelensky should do something about military reforms in Ukrainian army, Commander Syrsky, and the lack of the competence in general. Because 3 days ago, guys, the tragedy happened in Dnipropetrovsk region. Russians again hit the training ground of Ukrainian armed forces, actually very capable Marines of the 35th Brigade. Many of them died. They were lined up again in front of their barracks for some sort of the award celebration ceremony. Russians somehow knew about that location. They sent their Orlan drone that coordinated the strike of the ballistic missile Iskander. The result, many wounded, many flatlined. There was the big report of the brother of the soldier who lost his life in this Marine brigade 3 days ago. He said that the guy was fighting since the very start of the war. He was in Bakhmut, he was in all of those crazy difficult operations, but he was unalived because of the recklessness and incompetence of Ukrainian command. Yeah, it doesn't mean that all of the Ukrainian command is incompetent, but the system itself is crazy, guys, and I'm tired of speaking about it already, but I have to because it's the real problem, and each time it happens, no one gets punished. That's the huge problem for Ukraine, probably one of the biggest ones, and it's also the demotivation factor for Ukrainian volunteers to join Ukrainian army. The war itself is risky, especially against this huge enemy as Russia, with all of the resources and support Russia has, but also people afraid to lose their lives for basically nothing, to be encircled in the places like Pokrovsk or to be flatlined by the Russian Iskander really far away from the front line. So you can go, you will not be able even to make a single shot, then you'll be cancelled by Iskander, Lancet, whatsoever, because simply some of the local commander decided to film some sort of the TikTok and showed some of the maps in it, yeah? I'm referring to the real case if you follow my channel. So this Ukrainian army ex-Soviet system, which has continued to be mostly Soviet, is, I would say, the main demotivation factor, really, for people to join. Not even the Russian Federation itself. For Russia, everything is understandable. It is an aggressor, barbarian army. They do those war crimes, massacres, and they will use this incompetence of Ukrainian commanders in their favor. And I would say that we are actually lucky that Russian military command is still more incompetent than the Ukrainian one. But the small Soviet army cannot win against the big Soviet army. So for sure, in Ukraine, there should be reforms. We all screaming about those with all of the volunteers and sane officers, and they are not happening. No one gets punished for their wrongdoing with those crazy strikes on Ukrainian positions for basically nothing. For award lineup troops, what are you doing really? It's 21st century, 2025. Lots of the drones, Iskanders, are capable to cover most of the Ukrainian territory. It's crazy. And those visits of Zelensky somewhere, like, do your job. Speak with Syrsky for reforms and everyone will be happy. Ukrainian soldiers, for sure. Well, Ukraine is also using the similar tactics to track Russian vehicles. For example, it was Grad system. Our drone, surveillance drone, was operating in the area, And later on, Ukraine caputed it with their own type of the Lancet drones, I call them. Those are very effective as well as the Russian Lancets, but Russia invested a lot into the serial production. Ukraine is still in lack of those resources. Ukraine needs absolutely more of everything. This freak again with his Wunderwaffe, Burevestnik, what and other shit he mentioned today on his conference. Putin is degrading to the worst kind of the dictator philosophy. Then they show their weapons, which doesn't mean absolutely anything because Russia already has nuclear capabilities to destroy the world several of the times. By the way, Donald Trump also said that United States can do it 150 times. He commented about it a couple of days ago. Okay, what he mentions that Russia doesn't threaten anyone. Okay, so what they openly threaten everyone in the Western world, yeah, but now they say they do not threaten, but announce the development of its nuclear shield. Well, shield is something to protect your country. What Burevestnik or that Poseidon torpedo, it's not a shield, it's the attack weapon. And on the Russian TV, they say how it will kaboom absolutely everything. Yeah, some of the bullshit from the Russian dictator. Somehow Burevestnik and Poseidon will help to create the perspective moon station, moon freaking station. Like his army is not capable or was not capable to occupy Pokrovsk for almost 2 years, maybe 1 year and a half, something like that. Well, at least I predicted, my prediction was wrong. Then the last winter, Russia could potentially occupy Pokrovsk. It didn't happen. They continued to fight for it for such extensive period of time. They lost so much resources, so many infantry troops and armored vehicles. It is crazy to count everything of that. And what they occupy are just 2 ruined towns. Yeah, this is the huge success for Russia, of course. And they want to build a moon station now. Okay. There are 2 brain cells. One is Burevestnik, the other one is Poseidon. Guys, it is crazy. He's completely out of reality. That's why Russia attacks with those midwaves. Yes, they're successful in their attacks. It's crazy what they do. They have resource for those attacks, and because of that, the Ukrainian army, I would say openly, is struggling, and Ukraine cannot repeat that. Ukraine has just limited resources, and still our military command is not doing at least that stuff that Russians do. Likely, because there's still the public opinion in Ukraine. But in Russia, there is no critics for the Russian army action, and they continue to basically flatline their own soldiers in Ukraine, green them. But for Putin, he doesn't really care. All right, from Russian Burevestnik to kabooms happening on territory of Russia. As you see, Ukraine doesn't have Burevestnik, but nevertheless, those strikes are successful. The Ukrainian General Staff confirms that Ukrainian forces hit the critical parts of the Russian infrastructure. The Lukoil refinery in Kstova was targeted, plus the Sterlik-Tamag petrochemical plant in Bashkortostan. By the way, it was hit already before, and Russia had even some of the losses, if you may call those civilians, if they produce components for the Russian shells. I don't think they are fully like civilians. The refinery that was hit is one of the biggest one, was capable to produce 12 million tons annually for supports Russia military, and not only. Here we have the image from this refinery. Looks like the screenshot from Lord of Rings or something. Just not that good resolution, but reminds Mordor. Yeah, kabooms in Russia, they look like the average news, but Ukraine is definitely successful in those. However, Ukraine needs to introduce, I think, long-range missiles. I'm sure that Tomahawk missiles potentially could help Ukraine, but there are not enough ground launchers. That's why the rhetorics from Donny about Tomahawks, it was more to create the political pressure on Putin. That story requires lots of the time to produce ground launchers and to send all of the infrastructure to Ukraine. I don't think that there is a political will from the White House to finally send Tomahawks to Ukraine. Otherwise, they would be still working on that one. Well, maybe we don't know lots of the stuff happening behind the curtains, but from what I see, there is the problem with Tomahawks. With Flamingo missiles, it's too heavy, too visible for the Russian raiders. Well, at least right now that missile is not that successful, so I would bet on Neptune. That's the solution which Ukraine might take. Storm Shadow, it has the limited range, as well as Taurus potentially could be sent to Ukraine. But Germany still hesitates to send everything of that. And it's just a matter of time, then Russians will came out with some of the solution to create those huge meshes around their refineries or something like that, that would make those kind of the attacks impossible. So Ukraine absolutely should use this time right now. Then Russian refineries are still vulnerable, because maybe next year those attacks may not be possible, or could be possible with the powerful missiles only. All right. Oh, that's Oriol city of Russia. Uh-huh, nice. It is probably some sort of the long-range missile. I heard the jet engine. The jet engine and kaboom somewhere in Oriol city. There is the kaboom over there. If it is a drone flying, usually you hear this buzzing sound like moped. Yeah, we call those mopeds. But here it was clearly a jet engine only, a very smooth sound. Could it be a Flamingo? Yes, maybe, but also could be a Neptune. Interesting. For Storm Shadow Scalp, it's kind of far away. Yeah, one more. Locals report about the fire in a local power plant facility. Yeah, the usual view from the Russian window that goes to some sort of the local refinery. So Ukraine does absolutely everything it can to harm a Russian economy, Russian logistics, Russian military, but with the limited military support from our allies, I don't know how long Ukraine may definitely be capable for those kind of the strikes, or how long Ukraine defense might hold, because if Russia occupies entire Donetsk behind, they're not so strong defense lines. And I think Putin's idea is to continue to push Ukraine to destabilize it from inside, and our allies, I would say, they do not a good job in general to support Ukraine, at least at this stage, especially with the lack of the support of the United States of America. Yes, the sanctions, they are great, and now Turkey wants to purchase less of the Russian oil. Chinese companies refuse to purchase it, but how long it might continue? Several months until they circumnavigate everything of that. So definitely sanctions should be updated, upgraded, and applied regularly on Russia. It is strange that, for example, Lukoil company has not yet been sanctioned by European Union. They applied how many packages of the sanctions? 19, as far as I remember, and Lukoil is not there. And still European Union continue to purchase Russian resources. Still they continue the trade with Russia, while the third countries, Russia received technologies to produce their drones. There are lots of the Western-made spare parts. So this war in general is kind of strange, and Ukraine alone, even hitting the Russian infrastructure, cannot last forever. Ukraine needs the prompt support, and also Russia needs to have more pressure for it to stop this war at least. A democratic world should understand it before it is too late, but Ukraine does everything it can from its side to protect itself, and also protecting itself, it protects the Europe against the potential Russian aggression, for example, in Baltics. And you see what is happening in Belgium just right now while I'm recording this video. The drones were spotted and entire airspace of Belgium was closed. Airplanes are just circling around the airfields, some of them exiting to the other countries because of the provocations. I'm sure that those are coming from the Russian side. Russian jets are flying into the airspace of NATO, Russian drone provocations are elsewhere, but Europe continued to work with Russia. Not the full scale as it was with Angela Merkel, for example, but still there are kind of the close ties, business as usual attempts. Those leaders of the corporations, their high top managers, they don't care about the threats for Europe, they want money. That's the downside. Unfortunately, Europe should wake up until it is too late, and support of Ukraine is very freaking important. They need to listen Putin than he says about those threats. Yeah, we're not threatening you, but we have Burevestnik, we have Poseidon, we have everything. Be aware. Alright, one more sign that Putin doesn't want to stop this war. It's in Russian, but I can translate it to you. So Putin signed the degree of the mobilization to the Russian military service of the Russian conscripts, they say. that now will go for entire year. Before there were 2 times a year, then Russia mobilized those conscripts, but now Russian army may do it 24/7, 365, whenever they need those soldiers. Also, Russia started the massive recruitment of the reservists, those persons who served in the Russian army before. The Russian military command explains it as the mobilization of the Russian men to defend the Russian infrastructure on the Russian territory. But please tell me how those soldiers, what they may do to protect the Russian refineries, for example, against the drone strikes. Will there be some sort of the mobile groups created, but they do not require that sort of the massive mobilization of the reservists? So the scale of the recruitment and those processes, they tell us that Russia wants to get more army men to the army, and the volunteers are simply not enough to cover the Russian losses, especially those which were happening for the last couple of months. I think that Putin still doesn't want to announce mobilization openly. He is searching for alternate variants till the very last moment, but finally I think Russia will be forced to announce a new massive one. Russian soldiers, those who were just mobilized to the Russian army, mostly volunteers. Old, young, doesn't really matter, but they still go to the Russian army. Some of them more. So Russia still has, like, you see those elderly guys here and there. I think they're close to 60. This guy he looks more than 60 years old. Oh God. And this one also. But still there are some of the young future soldiers. That's crazy. Also more, this channel Parapax publishes all of those kind of the local videos which Russians share in their groups, and still elderly guys are this young, but many elderly as well. Usually those who live in the poverty or have some of the problems, they go to join the Russian army. They think that their lives could be improved, but usually it's not like that. Usually their lives are being cancelled. Yeah, that's what happens to them. Going somewhere, scrolling, probably obtain some of the wounds. The situation is not that great on the front lines. The crouch battalions, but again, we shouldn't underestimate the enemy. Russia has lots of those army men, and Russia has the part of the army which is very, very capable. Yeah, those guys are usually being sent to the straightforward meat attacks, but some of the Russian army may attack from the flanks. They have very capable forces. Russian Marines, paratroopers, so because of the resources, it's strong, and also because of the experience, military experience. It's not what it was in 2022, and we should understand it. I guess Ukrainian media also did kind of the terrible mistake before telling, oh, those are just chmobiks in the Russian army. Ukraine can nail them, and definitely Ukrainian army was successful in autumn of 2022, but now those kind of the breakthrough attacks operations are not possible simply because of the drones and the kill zone which is being created on the front lines. And Russian army is also not capable to advance that fast, at least right now. Then Ukraine keeps the main defense lines under control, but there is always the risk for the Russian army to break through that Ukrainian defense. So the real picture should be told. The Russian army is damn strong. Our officers are telling about it. Their Rubicon drone unit is very, very capable, and they have up-to-date gear. Luckily, there is the only one unit like that in the Russian army, but definitely this enemy is damn strong. And if we tell that there are chmobiks, they're hobos, sometimes they have those narcomans, alcoholics also in the army, but that's just the part of them. If we call all of them like that, what it means for Ukrainian army if Ukraine has to retreat under the pressure of those so-called alcoholics or ex-prisoners. No, Russian army is damn freaking strong right now, compared to 2022. Nevertheless, even the Russian army has its own resource, and for Ukraine it's important to continue on defense to exhaust Russian army resources. Probably it's the only thing which may force Putin to at least stop or freeze the war, because for Ukraine it's actually profitable to freeze the war right now, because Russia gains more ground on the front lines, and Russia still has an advantage over Ukraine. That's why maybe they continue the move. In the very best case, Russian soldiers are being evacuated from the front lines with a minor wounds. Here you can see it was a minor wound. I guess there was nothing to be hurt inside, as for the most of the people who signed the contract with the Russian army. Yeah, the standard Putin's supporters usually keep that box empty. Yeah, some sort of the dark humor, but yeah, the reality is like that. The only exit ticket is wound. Not just the average wound, but something really special. Just breaking while I'm filming this video, the air crash happened. It's McDonnell Douglas MD-11 cargo for UPS, I think. Yeah, crashed in Kentucky Airport, United States of America. Just obtained those horrific news, retweeted those on my social media, and of course, I gonna film the video about it on my aviation channel. Reports say that the aircraft crashed just after takeoff. You can see that there are some of the cars parked. I wonder if it's dense populated area or not. I just hope not. Yeah, this year in aviation is very tragic. Guys, thank you so much for your kind support on Patreon and on membership of the channel. You make my job really possible. If you want to join Patreon, the link for it is in the video description just below. And for membership, well, the button join is somewhere over here, just under this video. And you may do it only if you want to support me. I'm not begging you for some money or something. No. If you don't want to do it or you don't have any opportunity, just press the like to this video and subscribe to the channel, because it helps to spread information all around. And I'm very, very grateful for you. I'm just saying that because of your Patreon support and membership, we don't have any sort of the integrations with any sort of the brands. Those integrations which you sometimes see in other channels, they may ruin the impression of the video. I'm not saying that I forever canceled those, but for now I am more than okay with your support of my job, so probably we're gonna keep it going, yeah, like that. No integrations on the channel, no brands, nothing, just pure cooperation with my audience. So guys, thank you so much for it, and I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are. Have a great time.